Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to have with me Agape Garcia, and let me tell you about her. She has a tenacious attitude towards empowering others. Over the past 35 years, she has navigated through domestic violence, privacy, safety, vulnerability, and the mindset to endure personal adverse events in her life. Her survival of a double attempted homicide while 8 months pregnant by the father, and the desperation to survive became the catalyst of the foundation of Be Your Incredible Self, while achieving an undisputed outlook of extreme independence. Her personal journey of post-traumatic growth has led Agape to dedicate her life to developing transformational programs, various forms of coaching to bring emotional awareness, positive intelligence, and clear-cut confidence to experience post-traumatic growth, I can say that, and take action to live a more satisfying life. Over the past 10 years, she has volunteered and collaborated with local law writers in support of bills under legislation, specifically those under public safety and privacy, to support domestic violence, support of probably stopping domestic violence, if I think about that for a second. And she provokes thoughts around real-life situations while providing insight from boots on the ground experience. So we're going to have a little conversation today about don't be bitter, be better. Please join me in welcoming Agape Garcia. Agape, this is a subject that sometimes people kind of don't talk about. And that by not talking about different things that you've experienced in your life, you can't heal, but also others who may be searching for solutions, searching for help, don't get to hear your message of hope and understanding. So I thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It's definitely an honor to be here, and there's so much to talk about.
I know there is so much to talk about. We could probably do a 3-part series, which who knows, we may. So again, the easy questions that I always start out with was first, where do you call home? Where do you live?
Well, I am on the West Coast. I normally never disclose where I'm actually at, just because I want to show that there is a way to be vulnerable and safe at the same time, and also security and privacy, right? Which is like huge if at all possible. But because I'm going to be talking about some specific things in the state that I'm currently in, I will share, which you can check any podcast I've ever been on. I never do. So this is you are my first host that I'm sharing this with. I am in California.
Very good. And so I gave, again, some of your story, but I'd like for you to take some time to really talk a little bit about your story of what is your driver of, and really how it's made you become the woman that you are today, this passionate, driven woman.
Well, thank you so much. I think I'm going to fall back to that 3-part series you referred to, just because there is so much to talk about. But I will start with something that not a lot of people have heard, and that is PTG. Everybody has heard of PTSD. There's so much familiarity around that. I don't appreciate that it's considered a disorder. I don't agree to it being a disorder.
Right.
But PTG, which is seldomly heard of, is post-traumatic growth, where you are a stronger, wiser individual from the trauma and devastating experience that you have, gone through in life, and then what you're doing with it, right? So that's where I really feel like I'm living that. I'm a living definition of post-traumatic growth, because a majority of everything that I do is from that traumatic event I had about 20 years ago in surviving that double attempted homicide. Not only was I 8 months pregnant, I had just moved from Chicago. So I was over 1,000 miles away from home when it happened, and I was not even there for a full 45 days yet. Okay, I was
Wow.
unpacking, and when I was putting my stuff away, I found something that didn't belong to me, that was evidence of another woman. And when I, asked about it, I was met with, fists. So that was my devastating moment. I did not have friends or family. I had just moved there. My focus was getting settled and, getting to know the doctors in the area.
Yeah.
So my entire life changed within those 12, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving out, is something that most people struggle with, because, it's, the most riskiest time when your abuser knows that you are getting ready to leave, because you are then taking their power and control away. In my situation, I called the police and they were arrested. So moving out was not an issue for me. However, I had voluntarily left my job, my kid, my family, my friends. So I could not get a job at 8 months pregnant, and I was not on the checking account. We had our independent checking accounts. So I had nothing and nowhere to go, and I had 45 days to figure it out, because that's when my baby was scheduled to be born. And I say
Wow.
scheduled because it was a C-section. So just to give a little bit more insight of, that experience that is now paving the path of, the last 20 years and my future, there's still such a stigma under domestic violence. People are ashamed, people are embarrassed,
Yeah.
you don't want to talk about it. I was that person. I did not call home. I did not call friends. I was
Oh,
like, I need to
no.
figure this out. I'm so embarrassed. Plus, I'm high risk. I can't fly. I can't take a train. I can't drive. So what's the point of even saying anything?
Wow.
Okay. So yes, standing in line for food stamps, standing in line for any assistance, standing in line for anything that I could possibly obtain was where you were able to find me. So moving on, right? I'm gonna flash forward quite a bit here. During my, I can't say career, because I had to drop out of college during that time, and I was unable to pursue my career because I just needed to find a job that was going to pay the bills and put food on my table. So the ironic part about all that is I guess I would have to say, I chose to take on, whatever could pay, like I said. So I was in an HR role, and as HR, I dealt with employees who were also dealing with a domestic violence situation. And some employees did not come to me directly. It was their coworkers that came to me and asked, what are the benefits of the employer? What are the resources? What can they do? Majority of the time, there are none. There are no resources that employers provide. Typically, there is a employee assistance benefit program that helps, if you
For
have,
drugs and
alcohol
stuff.
problems or gambling problems and things of that nature. It's just they don't have resources for real-time victims.
Mhm.
So very unfortunate, as a HR, employee for the employer, I had to make decisions on what was I willing to share and offer, and it not be a liability for the company. It had to be something that I was willing to do independently, which can put, that person with that role in a sticky situation.
Yeah, very much so.
But because I had my own experience and all of these resources that I have done and found on my own, because I was boots on the ground surviving for myself, I was able to provide some resources and a little bit of help. Now, flash forwarding, I have been in managerial roles outside of HR and similar situations. I've had employees and coworkers in leadership level dealing with domestic violence. So it's this reoccurring umbrella, just under different circumstances, right?
Yeah.
I also was a security officer with my active, BSIS card, and I was also a physical security consultant, helping organizations with access control to eliminate, piggybacking and tailgating and accessing areas, basically to the critical infrastructure of the corporation to protect its what they would consider their most valuable assets. To
Mhm.
me, the most valuable assets are the people,
That's
not the
right.
operations.
Mhm. That is right.
So in helping, develop corporate policies under, physical security, access control, and emergency response and things of that nature, I also realized that there's a huge web that just kind of needs to be tied together, which I'll call business continuity. Okay.
Mhm.
Security, HR, EH&S, senior leadership, the person that's sitting at the front desk, all these people should be communicating about potential threats. All
Yeah.
right. Now, with all that, I've also volunteered under Cal legislation. This individual writes legislation for the state of California, specifically under public safety and privacy. I have also volunteered and was a mayoral appointee on the Citizens Review Board for police practices, working directly with internal affairs, receiving hands-on training.
Mm.
And I can keep going, but I'll stop there. So with the post-traumatic growth, be better, not bitter, and really elevating myself to a place where I can really offer some robust things for, I'm sorry, I'm trying to just kind of articulate my words here. For everyone involved, right? For everybody across the board,
Yeah.
from boots on the ground to high level. Okay. Two things I'm doing. So SB 553 just passed in California.
Mhm.
Governor Newsom signed the bill on September 30th of 2023, which was perfect because October is the whole entire month of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I was celebrating that a bill like this even came through. So follow me here. SB 553 is a legislative bill that is mandating corporations to have a workplace violence plan in place, which includes domestic violence spillover.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yes.
On a national level, OSHA already requires a workplace violence policy. But we all know, what good is a policy if there's not a plan?
That's
Right?
exactly right.
So my ears were ringing of joy when I heard that there's finally a mandate that a plan is required. Okay. So because this is a legislative bill and not a requirement from Cal OSHA, well, this legislative bill is now mandating that Cal OSHA be the enforcing agency.
Aha. So got to have a
Yeah.
plan.
So it's getting better and better and better. Now, October 1st was when this was, announced publicly that it's passed, it's in effect, and it's happening. Now, July 1st, which is in 4 days from now, is the date that it goes into effect. So a lot of California organizations have not had the opportunity to collect all the information, get solid intel to actually roll this out and implement it. Well, here I am. I'm a compliance officer by day. I understand fully how to handle access control, physical security, emergency response, all that kind of stuff. With my legislative volunteering and boots on the ground as a person that's in a protective program, I've also learned how to identify certain behaviors. I've learned what type of resources are actually available, and I've worn so many different hats. So I have a direct point of contact at Cal OSHA. I have all of the compliance-driven, high-level audit preparedness and audit readiness experience under my belt, and domestic violence happens to be what I know very well on all levels. So I am now consulting organizations in the state of California to roll out their plan and be compliant.
That's
Not only
awesome.
am I helping them roll out their plan, I'm also providing training.
Yes.
Yes, because there is no way in the world anybody can prevent domestic violence as a third party. Okay. We can try to mitigate, we can train to observe and report. We can talk about things to put into place to prevent, the access coming in and the ability to cause harm. But the mandate, not but, and the mandate calls for that. It is a requirement. So while funding for government programs and while funding for, nonprofits is going down under the umbrella of domestic violence, here now the state is holding the corporations semi-responsible. Okay. So I am a consultant and I have established a DBA called the DV Divas. And it is me and one other woman, and she has a domestic violence prevention training that is actually certified and the only one in the entire world. And her and I have partnered together, and we are both a part of the DV Divas offering this workplace violence plan, as well as rolling out the training. And it is not like any other training that people think about when they're like, oh yeah, I've taken my sexual harassment. Oh yeah, I've taken my no bullying policy training. It's not sit in front of the computer and watch a recording. It is interactive. I'm going to give you real life scenarios, real situations, and then ask the questions. What would you do? How would you respond? How does this impact your workspace? Because that's a requirement inside the bill to have interaction with your people. They need to know what to do and how to do it if and or when this happens within the workplace. And statistics haven't changed. 1 out of 3 to 4 women, 1 out of 6 to 7 men have dealt with or are dealing with domestic violence. So it's a numbers. I don't want to say game, but it's, it's a number crunching, eye-opening ordeal. If you have 300 employees, well, how many people does that make that's equaling the outcome of domestic violence? And it doesn't matter how much you make. It doesn't matter what your title is.
Right.
It does not discriminate. Okay. Sometimes people that sit in high level seats are dealing with domestic violence themselves.
Right.
So
as we said in the very beginning, it's just not talked about.
Exactly. And
happening.
breaking the silence, all it takes is for one person to bring it up, and you'd be surprised how many people will start talking about it and being more open about it. And that's really the goal and intent for the training in my eyes, because if I can talk about my story and how I showed up, not just as a victim to work, and using work as my safe haven, as the place where I have resources, where I have a refrigerator and I have a phone and I can make calls and things of that nature. You know how much productivity that took away from my day? It is what it is.
Yeah.
But anyways, being able to talk about it openly, my own story, I'm hoping that would, ignite other people and encourage other people to do the same thing, because at the end of the day, the goal is to keep everybody as safe as possible. When you go to work, it should be a safe place for everyone.
Mhm.
So, and there's a lot of things in place as it relates to, no reprisal, no, you should feel safe opening up and talking about it. There is no ramification behind
Mhm.
sharing, the
Right.
situation. It's really about helping the individual and the establishment as a whole.
Mhm. As you were talking, a couple things went through my mind. I run a church nursery as another thing that I do, and for that, I have the door has to always be locked, and I have the person who dropped off that child say who is allowed to pick up that child. And if they're not on the list, I don't care if they say they're the grandmother, the dad, the cousin or uncle, whatever. Um, I I can't let them take that child because of certain situations, just like we're talking about, where there is was domestic violence, and there's different things in place to keep the parents of that child or that grandparent or whomever away from picking them up, other than the son. The second piece is I work with kids that are 9 to 17. And in the one program, we look at the whole piece of it. So we actually have some of the education sessions with the parents, because a lot of the issues that we have with the kids are the issues that the parents have. And so having, just as you were saying, being able to have conversations with these kids about respecting your girlfriend, your your partner, your whomever, at that young age, and understanding what does it look like, and if you are in that situation where you're verbally or physically being abused, what do you do? So I could see how what you're teaching in the corporate environment could be something that is of value in this home situation, where we're trying to make our youth more equipped to know how to handle situations that might come up like that. Maybe it's their dad or mom that is being abusive to their dad or mom, type of thing. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, my thoughts around that is that children do emulate the behavior of the parents. And, when you have a group setting of children, it's pretty identifiable as to which children are dealing with an environment that is deemed unhealthy and or violent. And because you have the right as the caretaker during that time frame, just asking some questions and really talking to the establishment you're working with and for, to kind of get the sense as to what you can offer and what you can do. Again, sorry to say that it is what it is, because liability, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can be putting a target on your own back if that child goes home and says, Miss Vicki was asking me questions about what's happening here, and I told her XYZ, and they're like, oh, Miss Vicki, oh, she wants to be nosy, okay. And
Mhm.
that might be something that they come back and now you're a target, right? And you mentioned place of worship, you mentioned the church, and I will say it that a majority of the mass shootings that has happened in places of worship has been identified and tied to domestic violence. The most horrific mass shooting that took place a few years back in Sutherland, Texas, okay, where the 3 generations of family was taken out. When those people were interviewed, when the living was interviewed, they all said that they noticed certain things about the shooter. The shooter actually contacted the family and threatened them, and that family chose not to say anything to anybody and chose not to go to church that day. And look at how many
Mhm.
lives were sacrificed
Wow.
just from that. Okay.
Yeah.
So from my, security hat, physical security and access control, if you do not know who has the keys to your kingdom, start there, because it's all about getting inside,
Yeah.
right? You cannot cause that type of massacre if you cannot get in
Yeah. Yeah.
and obviously communicate, right?
Mhm.
So for that situation specifically that you're referring to in the church setting, find out if they have an active shooter policy plan
Yeah, we do.
program. Okay, so how many
Mhm.
times do you actually have a drill? Do you simulate that? Do you see how many people will respond if they know what to do, if they know how to do it? Kind of like a fire drill. You need to know how many people
Yeah.
are going to get out, where you're meeting up, and who's taking head count in a matter of seconds, right? So if you're not doing simulations or drills, you're not quite sure how the integrity of that program really
Yeah,
is.
that makes perfect sense. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I do like to look at and treat places of worship very similar to corporations, because there is an administrative office, there is paperwork there, you have financials that are there from people who are making donations, you have people in the office, secretaries answering the phone. There's a lot of operations very similar in the place of worship as well as in the corporations.
Yeah, the other place would be schools.
Yes, schools is a whole nother program. I was just reading an
Mhm.
article earlier this morning, or was it yesterday, where a principal hired a friend to come in and actually kill a teacher that was pregnant. So you don't even know. Can you imagine? I mean,
Yeah, just
most of the time
mind-blowing.
it's kids that are coming back or students that are outraged, whatever. But for a principal to hire a friend to take out a teacher, I mean, this is becoming such an inside job, that particular
Yeah,
situation, that, it's like there are things we will never see and that we will not be able to mitigate. But as long as we do our extreme due diligence by doing background checks and vetting the individuals, and I'm not just talking about the little county or the state, I'm talking about all the nation, right? You do a
right.
deep background check, 15 years, and see who you're really dealing with, especially when it comes to volunteers.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, it is gonna have to be a three-part series because time has flown by.
Oh my gosh.
So
Okay.
so before we end this, I have one last question, which is just share what are some of the transformational programs that you offer to schools, to whomever?
To whomever. That's a great statement. Okay, so it is to whomever, and it's 2 things. So I do have a nonprofit, Confronting Domestic Violence, and our mission is to help real-time victims with children relocate when they have a safe place to go but not the means to get there. We're actually hosting our very first gala this October, so please, I believe you have the link. If anybody would like to make a contribution in volunteering, donating, sponsoring, whatever it is, every little thing helps to support that mission. And other programs that I offer is the post-traumatic growth journey. I help you learn how to identify your triggers and then respond instead of react to them so you can meet your intended outcome. It's my special Be Your Incredible Self formula. And I definitely really talk about the mindset, because you have sabotaging thoughts that you cannot control, and it's learning how to intercept them so that you can live a more freeing life and level up who you are. When you look in that mirror, you should be able to talk to yourself the way that you would talk to anybody and everybody that you absolutely love and would go to hell and back for. It's exactly how you need to talk to yourself.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Wow, it's been so wonderful chatting with you. And I know that the audience is going to say, Vicki, how can I get in contact with our wonderful guest, Agape? If you're just listening, you know, I always tell you, you should have been taking notes all along. But if you didn't, please go run and grab a paper and pencil. All of this information will be available on my YouTube channel, Find Your Leadership Confidence website. So my YouTube is Vicki Noethling, but my website is Find Your Leadership Confidence. Again, those that are listening, the website is the DV Divas. Am I saying that wrong? The DV
That's okay.
Divas?
Yeah, for SB 553, you'll want the DV Divas, and for the nonprofit, you'll want Confronting Domestic Violence.
Very good.
And the same thing for Be Your Incredible Self. You'll just go to beyouриncredibleself.com. Everything is spelled correctly.
Very good. And so for LinkedIn, again, it's Confronting DV, as well as Instagram, and then YouTube is at Confronting Domestic Violence 57. I'm going to turn it over to Agape to talk to you about a questionnaire that she has that might be helpful for you, as well as things that she has on those websites that would definitely help you in your journey to be able to either get out of a situation you're in, or maybe share with someone that you know is in that situation. So it's all yours.
Okay, yes. So I apologize. The jot form that is at the bottom is more so for the SB 553. And if you need any help with leaving your situation, definitely go to the Confronting Domestic Violence website. Everything is kept very private there. We talk one-on-one, and I have plenty of resources to offer you if that is what you're looking for, opposed to the actual physical move itself.
Excellent. All right. So thank you so much. You just shared so much information. Really, again, a topic that people do need to talk about, be aware of. I love that you work with the churches and the schools, because, and your point about practicing and being prepared. It's one thing to write your plan, but it helps no one if the plan sits on a shelf and never is looked at. And then when that situation comes, the heightened anxiety makes you do stupid things sometimes. And so
Yeah,
you
you
need a
can
plan.
freeze. Yeah, for sure. I like to do what's called a penetration test. How far can I get in?
It's hilarious. All right. With that, thank you so much for being a great guest. Then, as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.